Third part. D raised his right hand. Sparks sprayed. Blade had bitten into blade. Meg's eyes went wide. D's right hand gripped a short sword. However, that was only for the second blow. For the first deadly slash, D had moved a fraction of an inch, and that was enough to leave Dandorian's sword cleaving empty space. Even the swordsmanship of the newly resurrected Duke was no match for D. The Duke bounded. His bandages left lengthy trails behind him. Just as the Duke prepared to swipe at him from midair, D, still poised to parry the blow, staggered. The bandages had crept across the ground, wrapped around the hunter's legs, and pulled them out from under him. The noble's blade split D's right shoulder, and the bloody spray spurting out momentarily filled both the hunter's field of view and that of the Duke. In that span, D hurled his short sword at his foe's location. However, bandages wrapped around it in midair, then discarded the weapon behind the Duke. A stark needle flew. It merely pierced another bandage before hanging in the air uselessly. The bandages flowed to either side of the nobleman, defending him from D's attacks, as if they possessed a will of their own. "My fortress of cloth," the Duke laughed, "and you have nothing. Will you try to stop my blade with naught but your right arm?" The Duke charged closer. A bloody grin hung on his lips. His blade swept right toward D's neck. The Duke ran, the blade swept. D leapt back, still wearing bandages. "You still lack a weapon." As the Duke regained his posture, he spun himself around in preparation for unleashing another attack. His eyes caught something. A stark gleam of light in D's hands, flowing right toward him. The sound of severed vertebrae echoed far and wide, and the Duke's head sailed through the air. Meg gasped. Her shirt was overlaid by a cry of pain. Still poised as it had been for the throw that had just put Dandorian's sword through his wife's chest. The Duke's torso was split in two lengthwise. That was from D's second blow. Taking his eyes from the decapitated body that thudded to the floor, D turned toward the door. A man in servant garb bowed reverently to him. In his hands he held an empty scabbard. Its contents were in D's hand. "Zangleson, you have my thanks," said the Duchess. Stained vermilion atop her bed. When D faced the Duke empty-handed, she had contacted her faithful servant via communicator and ordered him to bring a long sword that he would then give to D. Zangleson went over to the Duchess and knelt before her. "So kind of you to see me off, Zangleson," she said in a thread-thin voice that sounded like it could break at any second. The Duchess extended a pale hand to the steward. Clasping it between both of his, Zangleson said, "You honor me. Twice I've been destroyed by my husband. However, this time there are two of you to see me off." Meg wore a look of discontent. "D, it came to this in the end, as expected," Mizuki continued, lips trained of color, forming a smile. "But I was resurrected so I might be destroyed. My wish was granted. Please leave the island within the hour. Zangleson has been ordered to destroy the anti-proton reactor. Everything within a 6-mile radius of the island will cease to be." "Thank you." In saying that, D turned right around. "D, at the very least," Mizuki said, her hand slowly rising. "Take." The pale hand was turning the purplish hue of rot and corruption. "My hand." As her hand dropped limply, D gazed at it with a weary expression. Zangleson heaved a long sigh. That alone was their requiem for the noblewoman who twice died for love. With fog and blue light clinging to him, Dee started to walk away. Not yet, Dee, the remaining female said to him. Before you got that sword, it was me that got you out of that trap. Meg raised her left hand to shoulder level and turned her palm toward the hunter. A black eye was staring at Dee. At some point it just ended up on my hand, said the girl. I don't know when. It seems this eye's absorbed everything about you. Originally it was the Duke's, but it was torn from him when he was unaware, too. The person who put it on my hand is the same one who tore it from his. It was him, Dee said. It was neither a question nor an acknowledgement. Since I've got it stuck on me, I've got to fight you. You'll do it, won't you, Dee? Dee quietly turned to face Meg. Could Dee destroy a second woman who loved him? Page break. It was almost an hour later that one of the nobility's ships set off from the fog-shrouded bay for the dark pre-dawn seas. And when the ship was exactly 10 miles away, the island suddenly vanished. Though the nuclear reaction for protons colliding with antiprotons was extremely small scale, within a 6-mile radius the sea was vaporized to that same depth. And the water that rushed into that void caused high seas that plunged the oceans of the world, and communities near them into chaos. It was said that an abnormally small amount of damage was actually suffered thanks to the communication centers, closest to the coast having received word of the rough seas to come. Furthermore, that was a miracle, as such a notification was said to be impossible without the use of the nobility's equipment. As the ship slid down surges with a sheer 1,000-yard drop and slipped between massive whirlpools, Dee said to the figure at the wheel, "You've had practice of this, haven't you? When we get near land, I'll lower a dinghy," the figure replied, in a woman's voice. "That's where we part company. Thanks for everything. It'll be dawn soon. There's this island I know, and with this ship I can reach it in 3 days. If sometime before you die you happen to think back on me, come on by. Whatever island you land on, that's where I'll be." "Dear me," said the hoarse voice. "Same to you." Lightning split the dark sky, and the wind ripped at the waves the size of mountains. And through all that, the ship headed east, in the direction that would soon be colored by the light of dawn. The end. Vampire Hunter D, Volume 25, Undead Island. Written by Hideyuki Kikuchi, illustrations by Yoshitaka Amano. End.